Hey everyone, it's Isabel from Excited Cats, and today I'm going to share the story, as I promised, of me and Millie's experience flying. In South Africa, pets are required to fly in the cargo, so you can't have your pet with you in the cabin, which is very unfortunate. Causes a lot more stress to both the pet owner and the pet. Like I said, the flying experience was a lot different than I imagined it to be. So we used BidAir Pet Lounge, which is a subsection of BidAir Cargo. I also looked at Global Paws, which was a little bit costly. So I went with BidAir Pet Lounge and they were very helpful. It was quite affordable and it seemed like they were in operation for quite a while. So I felt I could trust them with my pet. How I prepared for the flight. First thing I did was go and buy her a carrier, some cat treats, CBD oil for cats, and a very basic cat harness. So this is the carrier I bought. It's just a basic cat carrier. It has these little clips which open here and at the bottom. And I wouldn't really say she can comfortably sit in it. When she's sitting upright, she has to crouch a bit. So it's not ideal for travel in extended periods of time. I also bought her these cat treats, CBD oil for cats, this really basic cat harness that is like this. So this goes around her neck and this goes around her waist. It's better than those ones with the thick pieces of material. I find that those are even more uncomfortable because their arms, or Millie's arms, was like this and she couldn't walk. So it just kind of makes them feel like they're not really wearing anything. A few days before the flight, I did some gentle, informal, unprofessional training, using positive reinforcement to get her into the crate, walk around the house a bit so she can get used to the motion. Then once I let her out, giving her another treat. I did the same with the cat harness. So anyone who's ever tried to put a cat harness on a cat who's never worn one before knows that it is quite the struggle. Cats really don't like the feeling of having something around them and then this lead, and it's just not something cats like. So you have to go through a whole training period with it. Also gave her a few of the treats with a drop or two of the CBD oil on, just to get her used to having CBD in her system so that on the day it won't be the first time. And yeah, it went pretty well. Millie was calm the whole time, obviously not expecting a thing. So the night before the flight, I removed all the food in the vicinity so that she can kind of fly on an empty stomach. It won't really be convenient to have her wanting to go to the loo in a plane because there's no litter boxes, of course. And I also made sure that all the doors and windows were closed around late noon. I did this because Millie always goes outside and explores between the hours of 10 and 5 in the morning. So, and our flight was 3 in the morning. So if she was gone at the time we had to drive, it would have just been a nightmare. So I made sure that she was going to stay inside. I left water out, but removed all the food. Later on, I realized this was actually a little bit of a problem in our specific case. Like I mentioned in the previous video, we have 10 other cats and Millie doesn't exactly play well with others. She also refuses to use litter boxes that other cats have used, so she doesn't like sharing her litter boxes at all. She usually just did all of her business outside in the garden. So you can see how this kind of ended up being a big problem when we closed her inside. She could only make use of litter boxes if she needed to, but she refused. So I wasn't really exactly sure how long ago she actually did go outside, and she almost seemed like she was a little bit extra stressed. So I think it was because she couldn't go outside and she maybe had to go and she just didn't want to use the litter box. The morning of the flight, 3 a.m. It was wild. Obviously, I only slept a few hours because I was so nervous and Millie was nervous, and it was just really getting the nerves up to speed with what's going to happen soon. I rounded up Millie and her things and my things, packed the car, put her in the carrier, and there we were driving off to the airport, Lanseria Airport in Johannesburg. We arrived there around 3:30-ish. And there was literally no one there. We didn't know where the pet lounge was. We found it, and there was just the guy who worked there arrived the same time we did. So it was just me, my dad, Millie, and the pet lounge consultant. And we did some paperwork and booked her in, got her flight documents and everything ready. And it was quite a small office. There was also no litter boxes there. They had this little patch of grass outside, which I tried to take Millie to go on her harness, but she was just not having it. She was totally scared and freaked out. So still at this time, she hadn't gone to the bathroom. Then we proceeded to chill in the waiting room for 2 hours because our flight was only at 6 o'clock. And I assume the pet lounge requires people to be there 2 hours prior so you can get all the stuff ready if it's busy, but it was literally just Millie flying on that flight. So we sat there and chilled, and she was kind of calm on the couch with me.
2 hours later.
So I transferred her from the couch to the crate that she was going to be flying in. It was a much bigger, secure, metal, airline certified crate with actual locks, and she could sit up straight, she could turn around, she could move, and there was a little bowl for water. And when they locked her in and put the cable ties around the locks and I had to go board, I burst out crying, and I cried hysterically whilst going through customs, going through the whole process. People stared at me very concerned. Our plane took off at 6 a.m. in the morning, and I am still crying hysterically at this stage. Around 30 minutes later, I reduced my hysterical crying to an immense sob. So and about 10 minutes after that, the immense sobbing stopped. So I just felt very emotional, and it was very traumatic for me, because I kept thinking about her and what she must be experiencing right now. I mean, all the crazy sounds of the plane and just the airport in general. It's a pretty loud, busy environment. So I just knew she must have been so confused and so scared. And with her being in the cargo, it's even worse. I can't see her, I can't do anything. I just felt very hopeless and emotional. So halfway through the flight, I calmed down and I watched some series just to get my mind off everything. The weather was luckily very good. There was no turbulence or anything crazy. The landing, however, was a little bit hectic, a little bit on the rough side, but it's fine. There's not really anything you can do about that. So we arrived at Cape Town International 8:10 in the morning. I went and I fetched my luggage and I met Rudy. And then we ran around the airport searching for the pet lounge, which we finally located outside of the airport. So it's not walking distance, for those of you who wondered. Arrived at Pet Lounge at Cape Town International, and the consultant took us around the back to where all the cargo gets loaded off and loaded in and everything. Went into this little secure room with the doors shut. And there Millie was in her little silver box, and there I started crying hysterically once again. And I opened her and she looked extremely stressed and confused and anxious. Of course, I mean, she just had the most crazy experience of her entire life. And we transferred her from the airport crate into her carrier that I bought. We loaded her in the car and drove home. When we arrived here, she was still very scared and confused, and she spent the whole day sleeping in the cupboard or under my bed and just acclimating to everything, getting used to the new space, which I'm also going to make a dedicated video of. Pre-flight prep. So you're going to want to do thorough research and planning. Each country will have slightly varying policies and regulations for flying with pets. So find out whether your pet can fly with you in cabin or whether they're going to have to fly in cargo. Service animals fall in a completely different category. So most service animals who are certified are allowed to travel in the cabin. So just call the airline of your choice and find out everything you can about your paperwork and the vaccines, the price, etc. Take your pet to the vet for a general checkup and mention your travel plans and make sure their vaccines are up to date. A rabies vaccine is a must. Millie had to get one, and then we had to wait 2 weeks before she could fly. Buy a suitable carrier. So if your pet's flying in cabin, then a soft-sided carrier is going to be the best. But if your pet is flying in cargo, then you're going to want to rent a airline certified one, or you can buy one if you're going to travel frequently. Even if you rent a airline certified crate, you're still going to want to buy a normal carrier for travel to and from the airport. You can also put a soft blanket in there for them to feel comfortable, and a worn shirt or piece of clothing so they can smell you inside of the carrier and just feel a little bit more safe. So you want to buy a harness, treats, and some sort of calming agent of your choice. You're maybe going to have to try out a few different ones and see which one your pet enjoys the most. And then, of course, book the flight in advance so you can prepare thoroughly and do gentle training. I booked ours 3 weeks in advance, also because of the rabies vax, but also so we can prep and get everything ready before the flight. Pre-flight tips. Make sure your cat is used to their travel gear. Remove all food and snacks the afternoon before the flight. Leaving water out is fine. Make sure they use the litter box at least once before going to the airport, number 1 and number 2. Have all your luggage, paperwork, and travel gear ready, and then try to get some sleep. Pre-takeoff tips. Arrive at the airport early, not too early though. Make sure to give them the calming agent before boarding so that the effects kick in once takeoff is happening. Make sure they have a soft blanket and your worn clothes with them in the travel crate so they feel comfortable and that there's something familiar with them in there. Try not to panic or cry. If your pet is flying in cargo, it can be very stressful because you're in the dark about their well-being for the entire flight, but just try not to panic too much. Our pets are stronger than we think. Make sure you have something to keep you busy on the flight and enjoy. So the next video will be all about getting your cat used to a new home, making sure they feel comfortable and welcome and happy. So if you'd like to watch that video, please subscribe to this channel, like this video if you enjoyed it, and turn on the notifications so you don't miss a thing. Thank you for watching and see you next time.